This is the story of an institution, a community cut off from the everyday world, Lennox Castle Hospital. It's also an introduction to a research method, oral history, which explores the lives of ordinary people. The researcher is Howard Mitchell.
I was very interested in why people performed in certain ways within the institution, why people followed certain regimes, where these regimes came from, why people were reluctant to break with practices which were sometimes looked upon as unnecessary and cruel, and how the community served to perpetuate these practices in many ways. And by interviewing and analysing that material, I think I've been able to get an insight into the psychology of how a community works.
Lennox Castle Hospital lies on extensive grounds at the foot of the Campsie Fells. It was built by Glasgow Corporation and opened officially in 1936. It was designed to be more or less self-contained, with accommodation for over 1,200 men and women with learning disabilities from the city of Glasgow. At the time it was opened, it was regarded as the most advanced of its type, both in terms of its design and operating policies. But now it is the subject of a closure programme. Howard Mitchell is very much an insider. For a number of years, the hospital included a maternity unit serving the population outside. Howard was born there and later went back to work as a nurse in the 1970s.
One of the first pieces of documentary evidence I looked at when I came to the records here in Lennox Castle, it's a Lennox Castle Maternity Hospital admissions book, and we have in the 25th of June 1955, Mitchell, male, born in the hospital. Well, it actually says nature of illness, born in hospital, but this is in actual fact my record of birth, proving that I am very much an insider to the institution.
Howard's method of research involves combining material located in the various archives with extensive interviewing of people who lived and worked in the hospital over the years. But first, what kind of place was Lennox Castle?
Typical tree-lined drive. You could be forgiven for thinking it was the entrance to one of the Victorian asylums of the 19th century. The mock stately homes for the mentally ill. In fact, Lennox Castle is very much a 20th century hospital. Purpose built in a dormitory or villa system, where each villa is self-contained for 60 residents and patients. 20 of these villas, 10 for men, 10 for women.
In the past, people with learning disability were generally put in poorhouses, workhouses or psychiatric institutions. However, at the beginning of this century, a fear grew that so-called feeble-minded people were, by interbreeding with the rest of the population, weakening the nation's physical and moral stock. The Royal Commission on Care and Control of the Feeble-Minded was followed by the 1913 Mental Deficiency Act. This allowed for the building of separate hospitals to keep people with learning disability from mixing with the general population. Such was Lennox Castle. "500 yards from the patients' villas, there was staff accommodation. In the early years, it was against hospital policy to employ local people. This helped keep the hospital isolated from society at large. Colin Sproul was unemployed in Glasgow in 1937 when he heard there might be work at Lennox Castle. He stayed for 38 years.
No, I went in to see a man municipal buildings, and he said to me, "Do you not fancy going out to Lennox Castle to work? It's a male nurse." So I did that.
Right.
That was in May 1937.
And did you fill in an application form?
Oh yes.
And they presumably taken for interview?
Yes, I was interviewed.
Can you remember your interview?
Chief male nurse interviewed me.
And just him by himself?
Yes. And he asked me if I could play football. And that was Ewan.
Yeah.
He was very keen on football and had a great team.
This is the site for one of the 3 top-class football pitches. Football and other sports loomed large in the lives of staff and patients. Sport helped foster a sense of identity and community.